All right, you sneaky bastards, buckle up, because today we're diving headfirst into spy fiction.
Spy fiction.
And trust me, this shit goes way deeper than your average Bond flick.
It certainly does.
We got a ton of requests to do a deep dive on this, so we brought in an expert to unpack it all.
I'm happy to be here.
Okay, so before we have, like, suave secret agents blowing shit up,
Right.
how did this whole spy novel thing even get started?
Well, before we get to the 20th century,
Yeah.
espionage in literature, that existed.
Sure.
But the spy novel, as we know it today, that really kicked off with The Riddle of the Sands in 1903.
Okay.
And it's a story about these amateur spies
Yeah.
uncovering a German invasion plan.
So, like, a couple of dudes on a boat just stumble onto, like, this huge conspiracy?
Exactly. And it really reflects the anxieties at the time.
Okay.
Pre-World War I, there was this widespread fear of invasion, especially in Britain.
Right.
And you also had the rise of anarchist movements.
Oh, yeah.
Which added kind of another layer of paranoia to everything.
And speaking of paranoia, didn't Joseph Conrad write about that whole anarchist spy thing in The Secret Agent?
He did.
That book is pretty fucked up.
It's a great example of how early spy fiction wasn't all glamorous adventures.
Yeah.
His spies are often morally complex, caught up in these really dangerous ideologies.
Boy.
And The Secret Agent, it really delves into this psychological darkness of the spy game.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder how much of that was inspired by real life.
Yeah. Right.
Because spying has always been shady business.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, hell, even Sherlock Holmes was a double agent in one story.
That's right, yeah. And that connection to reality, that became even stronger during and after World War I.
Okay.
Authors like Somerset Maugham, who was an actual spy.
Whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah.
A real-life spy-turned-author?
That's right.
So he was like, right, would you know, huh?
Exactly.
Okay, what did those stories focus on?
His stories shifted away from this romanticized adventure. Okay.
And focused more on the moral complexities of being a spy.
Right.
So less saving the world with a witty one-liner.
Yeah.
And more like dealing with the messy realities of deception and betrayal.
So basically they were trying to burst that whole, gentleman spy myth.
Precisely. And that trend just continued in the interwar years.
Okay.
You had authors like Compton Mackenzie, for example, who satirized the spy world.
Right.
And then others like Dennis Wheatley, who explored the rise of fascism and how that fueled all this international intrigue.
But then things really went batshit crazy with the Cold War, right?
I did, yeah.
That's when we got, James Bond swaggering onto the scene, shaking his martinis, betting every woman in sight.
That's right.
I mean, come on.
The Cold War was a goldmine for spy fiction.
Yeah.
And Ian Fleming, a former intelligence officer, gave us that glamorous, action-packed side of espionage.
Okay, sure, but it wasn't exactly realistic, was it?
Not really, no.
I mean, let's be real. Shaken, not stirred. Give me a break. Right, exactly.
Real spies are more worried about, getting poisoned than getting laid.
Absolutely.
And that's where John le Carre comes in, I guess.
Precisely.
Yeah.
His novels are a stark contrast to Bond's escapades.
Okay.
Le Carre portrayed the Cold War spy world as morally ambiguous, psychologically draining.
So while Bond is out there living the high life,
Yeah.
Le Carre spies are basically having mental breakdowns in, shitty apartments.
You could say that.
That's depressing.
It reflects the anxiety of a world on the brink of nuclear war,
Right.
where the stakes were incredibly high
Yeah.
and the lines between good and evil were just totally blurred.
Right. This whole Cold War spy obsession wasn't just a Western thing, though, was it?
No, absolutely not.
Didn't the Soviets have their own version of spy fiction going on?
They did.
Okay.
Soviet writers were churning out stories about heroic KGB agents
Okay.
defending the motherland from all these capitalist plots.
Ah, the classic us versus them narrative.
That's right.
But I feel like there was this one city where both sides' fictional spies kind of collided,
That's right.
and that's Berlin. Right.
Exactly.
Wasn't that a real-life spy playground during the Cold War?
It was the hotbed of espionage,
Yeah.
a divided city
Yeah.
occupied by multiple powers.
Right.
It was the perfect setting for both real and fictional spy games.
I mean, Le Carre's the spy who came in from the cold. That captured that atmosphere perfectly.
It does.
Ends with the protagonist getting gunned down trying to cross the Berlin Wall.
Right.
Talk about bleak.
Yeah, it was a direct challenge to that romanticized image of spying.
Right.
Showing the human cost of those Cold War conflicts,
Yeah.
the moral compromises, and the psychological toll it took on everyone involved.
Okay, so we've gone from amateur spies accidentally saving the world
Right.
to burnt-out agents getting shot trying to escape a divided city.
Yeah,
That's quite the evolution.
it is.
But what happened after the Cold War ended?
Wow.
Did spy fiction just disappear like a retired KGB agent?
Not at all.
Really?
The world didn't magically become this peaceful utopia after 1991.
Yeah, no shit.
In fact, you could argue that things got even more complex and dangerous.
I mean, it's like everyone took a deep breath and then realized,
Yeah.
holy fuck, what now?
Exactly.
The big bad wolf was gone, but then a whole new pack of wolves shows up,
Right.
ready to play.
That's a great way to put it.
So how did spy fiction keep up with this whole new world order?
Well, it had to adapt, just like the real world of espionage.
Okay.
The rogue state became the new go-to villain.
But who?
Think North Korea, Iran, countries operating outside the traditional power structures.
Right?
And then, of course, 9/11 happened, and terrorism just became this defining threat.
Yeah, terrorism. That definitely threw a wrench into the whole spy game.
Absolutely.
So did that mean like the traditional spy versus spy stuff? Did that go out the window?
Not really, no. The Cold War might be over, but those rival intelligence agencies, they didn't just pack up and go home.
Oh, of course not.
They were still maneuvering in the shadows,
All right.
trying to figure out this new landscape.
Right.
And on top of that, you had the rise of cyber warfare,
Oh, yeah.
which added a whole new dimension to espionage.
So less sneaking around embassies and more hacking into mainframes from a dark basement somewhere.
You got it.
I guess even spies need a tech upgrade every now and then.
They do.
Were there any authors that really nailed this transition?
Oh, absolutely.
Like who?
Robert Harris, for example. He wrote Enigma back in 1995.
Okay.
It was set during World War II, but the themes, code breaking, technological advancements, that moral gray area of wartime, those really resonated in the post-Cold War world.
Yeah, because even though, like, the Nazis were the bad guys, the whole code-breaking thing,
Right.
that was morally complicated, right?
It was.
Like, how far do you go to win, even if it means bending the rules?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in the U.S., you had Tom Clancy,
Oh, yeah.
who was already known for those Cold War techno thrillers. He kept cranking out hits like Dead of Honor, which imagined a war between the U.S. and Japan,
Okay.
sparked by economic conflict and cyber attacks.
Clancy always had a knack for making those what-if scenarios
He did.
feel way too real.
Absolutely.
It's like he was tapping into some deep-seated fear we all have
Right.
about the world going to shit.
Exactly.
But hey, spy fiction isn't all doom and gloom, is it?
No, not at all.
There's always been that playful side to it,
Right.
even in the midst of all the geopolitical tension.
Absolutely. That sense of humor, that over-the-top action,
Yeah.
that definitely carried over into the post-Cold War era.
Okay, give me an example.
The Austin Powers movies.
Austin Powers.
Yeah.
Groovy, baby.
Exactly. They were basically a love letter to those cheesy 60s spy flicks.
Right.
All gadgets and goofy villains.
Pure comedic gold.
But those movies also poked fun at how ridiculous the whole super spy thing could get.
Yeah, let's be honest. Real-life espionage is probably a lot less glamorous.
It is.
A lot more paperwork.
A lot more paperwork, yeah.
But that's part of the appeal of spy fiction, isn't it?
It is.
It lets us escape.
Absolutely.
Imagine ourselves as like the heroes or anti-heroes of these stories.
Right.
It can be a way to comment on real-world issues,
It can't.
even if it's through this fictional lens.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of skilled writers, there's this whole breed of spy novelists
Right.
who bring a different kind of expertise to the table.
They do.
The insider.
The insiders.
These are the folks who've actually been in the game,
That's right.
worked for intelligence agencies,
Yeah.
and then decided to spill the tea,
Spill the tea.
or at least a fictionalized version of it.
Precisely.
And their work often blurs the lines
Mhm.
between fiction and reality.
It does.
You get a glimpse into the real world of espionage.
You do.
And it can be both fascinating and unsettling.
Absolutely.
John le Carre, of course, is a prime example.
A great example.
Yeah, but there are plenty of others.
There are.
Charles McCarry, for instance,
Uh-huh.
wrote the Paul Christopher series,
Right.
which took a pretty critical look at the CIA
That's right.
and how it operates.
Yeah.
Oh, and don't forget about Stella Remington,
Oh, right.
former head of MI5.
Wow.
Talk about knowing where the bodies are buried.
Literally.
Literally.
Yeah.
But this insider spy fiction, it can be a bit of a double-edged sword, can it?
It can.
Because on the one hand, it brings this incredible level of realism and insight to the genre.
Right.
But on the other hand, it raises questions about authenticity.
It does.
Like, how much of it is true?
Right.
Are they settling old scores or pushing an agenda?
Yeah, you never really know.
Like trust but verify, right?
Exactly.
Especially with spy stories.
Absolutely.
You never really know what's real and what's been embellished.
That's right.
For dramatic effect.
Right.
But hey, that's all part of the fun, isn't it?
Absolutely.
The best spy fiction keeps you guessing, makes you question your assumptions.
It does.
It reminds you that in the world of espionage, nothing is ever quite what it seems.
That's true.
And it's not just books anymore, is it?
No, it's not.
Spy fiction has blown up across all forms of media.
It has.
Movies, TV shows, you name it.
Everywhere.
From Mission Impossible, where Tom Cruise is basically defying death every 5 minutes.
Right.
To Homeland, which kept you on the edge of your seat, wondering who to trust.
Absolutely.
There's something for everyone.
There is.
The genre has diversified.
He has.
You can find gritty realism, over-the-top action, even dark humor.
All within the world of spy fiction.
Okay, so we've covered the evolution of spy fiction from, like, pre-World War I anxieties to post-Cold War chaos.
Yeah.
But before we wrap this up, we got to talk about the kids.
The kids?
Yeah, you heard me right. The kids.
Okay.
Spy fiction for younger audiences.
Interesting.
It's kind of a mindfuck when you think about it.
It is, yeah.
You're taking a world that's often associated with violence, secrecy, and moral ambiguity.
Right.
And you're making it palatable for kids.
It's a challenge.
It is.
But they love adventure.
Oh, they do.
And what's more adventurous than a secret agent saving the world?
I mean, I grew up on Spy Kids.
Spy Kids, yeah.
Those movies were the shit.
They were fun.
They were.
That's the key, right? You know, these stories, even when they're dealing with these potentially complex themes, they're designed to be fun.
Cool.
You know, they offer that sense of excitement, danger, wish fulfillment.
Right.
And that appeals to kids.
Plus, there's something empowering about seeing kids in these adult roles, right?
Absolutely.
Outsmarting the bad guys, using their skills to make a difference.
It's inspiring.
The Alex Rider series is a perfect example.
Oh, yeah, great example.
Teenage boy becomes a spy for MI6. Talk about living the dream.
It's a fantasy.
It is.
But it taps into that desire for agency that's so strong in young people.
Right.
But they also often subtly introduce more complex ideas.
Hold up.
Yeah.
You're not saying that they're sneaking in some deep state propaganda.
No, not quite.
Oh, good. Yeah.
But think about it. Even in a simplified form, spy fiction deals with deception, betrayal, use of force.
Okay, yeah.
It forces young readers, maybe without them even realizing it, to grapple with questions of right and wrong, loyalty, responsibility.
It's like sneaking those veggies into the mac and cheese.
Exact.
They're getting a dose of ethical dilemmas.
They are.
Alongside the action and adventure.
Sneaky but effective.
Sneaky but effective.
Exactly. And don't forget the educational aspect.
Okay.
Spy fiction, even for kids, often exposes them to different cultures.
Right.
Historical events, technological advancements.
Oh, okay.
It can spark curiosity and a desire to learn more about the world.
So it's like a sneaky history lesson.
It is.
Wrapped in this cloak and dagger adventure.
Exactly.
I like it.
Yeah.
But even with the kid-friendly versions,
Yeah.
there's still something inherently cool about spy fiction.
There is.
It taps into that sense of mystery, danger, living a life outside the ordinary.
Absolutely. Spy fiction, regardless of its audience, it offers a glimpse into a world that most of us will never experience firsthand.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
It allows us to live out those fantasies of intrigue, danger, and adventure.
Yeah.
It's escapism at its finest.
And that's what keeps us coming back for more.
It is.
Whether it's a classic Cold War thriller or a modern-day cyber espionage tale, we're drawn to the shadows, the secrets, the characters who operate in that world.
We are.
It's a genre that, despite its evolution, still holds this strange power over us.
It does.
Okay, so that was a pretty good overview of, like, the spy fiction landscape.
Yeah, I think so.
But before we wrap things up, I got to ask you,
Okay.
for someone who wants to dive into this world, where do they even start?
It depends what you're looking for.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. Let's say I want the classic Cold War experience.
Okay.
With all the intrigue and moral ambiguity.
I would recommend John le Carre's The Spy Who Came In From the Cold.
Solid choice. What about pure escapist fun? With a dash of Cold War nostalgia.
You can't go wrong with Ian Fleming's Casino Royale.
Okay, classic. But what if I want something a bit more modern?
Okay.
Something that reflects the complexities of the post-9/11 world.
Then I would suggest Daniel Silva's Gabriel Alon series.
All right, I'll check it out. So we've got 3 solid recommendations to get anyone started.
I think so.
Now, before we jump back into, like, the history of this whole spy fiction thing,
Okay.
we need to address the elephant in the room,
What's that?
the spy shows.
Oh, the spy shows. Yes. Yes, we have to.
We're talking everything from, like, The Americans,
Yeah.
which gave you a chillingly realistic look at Soviet sleeper agents operating in the U.S. during the Cold War,
Right.
to Archer, which is basically a cartoon spy parody.
Yeah.
That's as hilarious as it is inappropriate.
It is, yeah.
And let's not forget the classics, shows like I Spy,
I Spy, of course.
which broke ground with its racially diverse cast.
It did.
And its focus on character development.
Yeah.
Or The Sandbaggers,
Right.
which offered that behind-the-scenes look at the often morally questionable world of British intelligence.
Yeah, good one.
Those shows definitely paved the way for modern hits like Homeland,
Absolutely.
Spooks,
Yes.
24,
Right.
which all tap into our anxieties about terrorism, global conflict, and the sacrifices made by those who operate in the shadows.
They do. Spy shows offer that unique blend of action, suspense, and social commentary.
Yeah.
And they reflect our ongoing fascination with the world of espionage.
Okay, so from Cold War classics to modern-day thrillers,
Right.
from gritty realism to over-the-top parody,
Yeah.
spy fiction in all its forms continues to captivate us.
It does.
It's a genre that explores the shadows, the secrets, the moral dilemmas
Right.
of a world where the lines between truth and deception are constantly blurred.
They are.
And on that note, I think it's time to get back to the historical timeline.
Okay.
We left off with the end of the Cold War.
We did.
But the story of spy fiction, it didn't end there.
It did.
It just got a whole lot more complicated.
It did.
So buckle up, sneaky bastards, because we're diving even deeper.
Let's do it. You know, it's funny how the end of the Cold War didn't kill off spy fiction.
Well, yeah, because the world didn't just magically become this peaceful utopia after 1991.
If anything, it opened up a whole new can of worms.
It's like someone swapped out a known enemy for 1,000 shadowy figures lurking in the dark.
Exactly. And spy fiction had to reflect that. We saw the rise of new threats, rogue states, terrorist organizations, cyber warfare.
So basically, the spy game got a whole lot more complicated.
The enemies became more elusive, the battlefields less defined.
How did that play out in the novels of this era?
Well, for starters, the lone wolf spy, that became less of a trope.
Right, you can't exactly fight like a global network of terrorists with just one suave secret agent.
We started seeing more stories about collaboration, about intelligence agencies working together, or at least trying to combat these transnational threats.
Makes sense. What about the technology? Did that change too?
Oh, absolutely. The technology became even more central to the plots. We saw stories about hacking, surveillance, drone warfare.
Reflecting the increasing role of technology in modern espionage.
Exactly.
So the spy gadgets went from exploding pens and hidden cameras to sophisticated hacking tools and AI-powered surveillance systems.
Talk about a tech upgrade.
It's a whole new world. What about the moral dilemmas? Did those change too?
They became even more complex. You know, in the Cold War, you kind of knew who the good guys and bad guys were.
Right.
But in this new world order, the lines were blurred.
Yeah. How do you fight an enemy that doesn't play by the rules? An enemy that blends in with civilians, an enemy that uses the internet as a weapon?
These were the questions that post-Cold War spy fiction grappled with.
Yeah.
It forced us to confront uncomfortable truths about the nature of conflict, about the compromises we're willing to make in the name of security.
It's heavy stuff. It's a far cry from the days of James Bond sipping martinis and bedding beautiful women.
It certainly is, but I think that reflects a broader shift in our understanding of the world. The post-Cold War era shattered the illusion of simple solutions and clear-cut victories.
Yeah, the world got a lot more messy.
Spy fiction, as a reflection of our anxieties and fears, had to evolve along with it.
Speaking of evolution, we haven't even talked about the explosion of spy fiction on TV and in movies.
It's like everyone suddenly realized that spies make for damn good entertainment.
It's true. And the range of stories being told is incredible. You have shows like Homeland, which captured the post-9/11 paranoia and the moral complexities of fighting terrorism.
Right.
Then you have something like Archer, which is a hilarious, albeit incredibly inappropriate, parody of the whole spy genre.
And let's not forget about the films.
Oh yeah, the movies.
The Mission Impossible franchise is still going strong, with Tom Cruise basically risking his life for our entertainment.
And then you have more grounded, character-driven spy movies like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy,
Hmm.
which brought Le Carre's world to life on the big screen.
It seems like our fascination with spies is as strong as ever.
Why do you think that is?
Maybe it's the allure of the secret world, the danger, the intrigue. Or maybe it's something deeper. Perhaps spy fiction allows us to confront our anxieties about the world, to explore the dark corners of human nature, all from the safety of our armchairs.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive into the world of spy fiction.
Okay.
We've covered a lot of ground.
Right.
The origins of the genre, the key players, the evolution of the spy figure, the move beyond the page and onto the screen.
It's been a fascinating conversation.
It has. And I hope it's given our listeners a better understanding of this complex and often misunderstood genre.
Me too.
Big thanks to you for sharing your insights.
The pleasure was all mine.
You've definitely earned your license to kill boredom, that is.
It's always a joy to delve into the world of espionage, even if it's just through fiction.
And to all you sneaky bastards listening out there, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. If you're feeling inspired to check out some spy novels or binge watch a few spy shows, we won't judge. In fact, we encourage it. Just remember, keep your eyes peeled and your martinis shaken, not stirred. Until next time, stay vigilant. You never know who's watching.
So the world didn't magically become a peaceful utopia just because the Soviet Union collapsed.
Yeah, it's like someone swapped out a known enemy for like 1,000 shadowy figures lurking in the dark.
Right. If anything, it opened up a whole new can of worms for spy fiction to deal with.
Okay, so how did that actually play out in the novels? What were they writing about?
For starters, the lone wolf spy became less of a thing.
Okay, makes sense. I mean, you can't exactly fight a global network of terrorists with just one suave secret agent, can you?
Nope. So we started seeing more stories about agencies working together, or at least trying to.
Right, to tackle these new transnational threats.
Exactly. And the technology also became more central to the plots.
Obviously, yeah.
You know, stories about hacking and surveillance and drone warfare, all that stuff.
Basically mirroring the real world.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
So the spy gadgets went from exploding pens and hidden cameras to sophisticated hacking tools and AI-powered surveillance systems.
Talk about a tech upgrade. I mean, that's insane.
Right.
But what about the moral dilemmas? Those must have gotten more complicated too, right?
Oh, absolutely. In the Cold War, you kind of knew who the good guys and bad guys were.
Right. Black and white, yeah.
But in this new world order, it gets all murky.
Yeah, it's like, how do you even fight an enemy that doesn't play by the rules?
Right. An enemy that blends in with civilians.
Uses the internet as a weapon.
Exactly.
It's a whole different ballgame.
It is. And these were the kinds of questions that post-Cold War spy fiction really grappled with. You know, it forced us to confront some uncomfortable truths about conflict and the compromises that we make in the name of security.
That's heavy stuff, man. It's a far cry from the days of James Bond sipping martinis.
It is. But I think it also reflects a broader shift in our understanding of the world.
In what way?
Well, the post-Cold War era shattered that illusion that there were simple solutions and clear-cut victories.
Right. Like the world just got a lot more messy.
And so spy fiction, as a reflection of our anxieties and fears, had to evolve with it.
Okay, so speaking of evolution, we got to talk about spy fiction on TV and in the movies.
Yeah.
Because it's like everyone just suddenly realized that spies make for some damn good entertainment.
It's true. And the range of stories they're telling is incredible.
I mean, you have shows like Homeland, capturing that whole post 9/11 paranoia
Yeah.
and the moral complexities of fighting terrorism.
Exactly.
And then on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you have something like Archer, which is hilarious.
It's a classic.
But incredibly inappropriate. Just this parody of the whole spy genre.
It's great. What about the movies?
Oh, the movies are huge. I mean, the Mission Impossible franchise, that's still going strong.
Tom Cruise still risking his life.
Basically.
Yeah.
All for our entertainment. And then you have those more grounded movies.
Like what?
Like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which is based on Le Carre's work. That one brought his whole world to life on the big screen.
I love that one. I think it really shows that our fascination with spies is as strong as ever.
What do you think that is?
It's a good question. Maybe it's that allure of the secret world, the danger, the intrigue. Or maybe it's something deeper. You know, maybe spy fiction allows us to confront our own anxieties about the world, explore the dark corners of human nature, all from the safety of our armchairs.
I like that. That's really well put. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive into the world of spy fiction. We covered a lot, the origins of the genre, the key players, how the spy figure itself has evolved, how it's moved beyond the page onto the screen.
It's been a fascinating conversation. I've really enjoyed it.
Me too. And hopefully our listeners now have a better understanding of this really complex and often misunderstood genre.
I hope so.
Big thanks to you, expert speaker, for sharing all your insights.
It's been a pleasure. Always a joy to delve into the world of espionage.
You've definitely earned your license to kill boredom, that is.
Even if it's just through fiction, it's always exciting.
And all you sneaky bastards listening out there, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. If you're feeling inspired to check out some spy novels or binge watch a few spy shows, we don't judge. In fact, we encourage it. Just remember, keep your eyes peeled and your martinis shaken, not stirred.
Good advice.
Until next time, stay vigilant. You never know who's watching.